All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call us to order. I don't have a gavel. Noisily bang our fists.
We're getting the gavel.
Oh, they're getting a gavel.
Oh, good.
Nobody's going to simmer until we do. Hello, everyone. I'm going to start us on time so we can end promptly before a single snowflake falls, right? That is the commitment Kennick and I are making to you tonight. Thank you, sir. So welcome for those joining us. I am Katie Crystal. I am for at least the next 10 minutes, the chair of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. Welcome to our January 6th meeting. It's nice to see so many of you in person and more still on the phone, the dial-in. We are beginning this meeting at 7:04 p.m. by my watch. As has been our practice recently, we are live streaming the meeting. Commissioners who are present, if you could speak up when you talk, that helps those who are participating electronically hear you. We have several commissioners joining us electronically today. Dahlia Palchik, Matt Letourneau, David Reed, and Libby Garvey are all participating electronically due to medical reasons, either for themselves or a family member. I'm going to briefly just confirm. I know I see Ms. Palchik with us. I think I see Ms. Garvey. And do we have Mr. Letourneau and Mr. Reed on the line as well?
Yes, Chair Crystal, this is Delegate Reed. I'm here.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Okay. Also for this meeting, I feel like I'm reading the understudy announcements for the Broadway show. The role of Hamilton will be played by Mr. Stork is serving as alternate for Mr. Alcorn, so he will be voting this evening. Mr. Stork, delighted to see you. We are going to continue to show those meeting slides up on the screens and help us navigate through. This also helps our listening audience follow along, and I believe we do have quorum. So we'll jump right in. A few notes about our agenda tonight. We'll begin with public hearing. We have a public hearing on agenda item 7. That is an opportunity we've read every year for members of the public to provide comments on our annual work plan. If you are here because you wish to speak and you haven't already done so, please do add your name to the list with our staff. We'll give each speaker 3 minutes. And as we have done throughout the pandemic, we are seeking the general practice of, or we're engaged in the general practice of seeking public comments. We received, I believe, 1 comment this month. Ms. Mbtc, could you tell us about that comment?
Indeed, we did receive 1 comment from Mr. Smith in Fairfax County, really pressing that Nbtc focus our rail and bus funding on improving safety and reliability of our transit systems. This comment was provided to all of you a little bit earlier today.
We appreciate that, and I think continues to be a key criterion in our conversations, especially about our 395, 95, and 66 programs, and we appreciate Mr. Smith's comments. Okay, a quick note to begin. As we put together that meeting schedule we voted on last month, we were not anticipating what has since been arranged by VACO and VML, which is an in-person lobby day on February 3rd. Ms. Mbtc has worked very hard to see if there is a universe in which we could have a meeting with quorum during those 2 lobby days, and it looks like it's simply going to be impossible. So the executive committee met earlier, discussed. We are recommending that we go ahead and cancel the February 3rd meeting. So we would next convene after this month in March. Before calling for a motion to effectuate that, are there any questions, comments, concerns about canceling the February 3rd meeting? Okay, seeing none, I will call for a motion. Thank you very much. Moved by Vice Chairman Aguirre. Is there a second? Thank you very much. Seconded by Delegate Krizek. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great, I heard Ms. Palchik on the phone. Delegate Reed.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Letourneau.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Garvey.
Aye.
Thank you. Are there any opposed? Okay, seeing none, that passes unanimously. We'll meet again in March then. And the staff will be updating each of the commissioners through written reports. Notably, our committees will still be convening throughout the next 4 weeks. Ramada committee meets next week, Monday, January 20th, or excuse me, Thursday, January 20th at 6 p.m. Legislative and Policy Committee meets right around crossover, I think, February 17th at 5 p.m. And our Program Advisory Committee will be meeting on February 23rd at 4 p.m. Please do take the opportunity to attend a commission or committee meeting if you like, a good way to stay apprised. Okay, I have what actually is going to be great fun. I have the pleasure of swearing in a couple of new commissioners. We have 2 Alexandrians joining us this year in 2022, specifically Sarah Bagley, who will be replacing Elizabeth Bennett Parker. Welcome. And Kirk McPike will be an alternate for replacing Mo Seifeldin. I don't believe he's with us tonight. Okay, but we'll look forward to meeting him soon. We are so glad to have you. If you could join me up front for the ceremonial oath of office, we would appreciate that, and a photo opportunity. Nothing on which you can swear. So simply take your vote.
Just swear for someone.
Exactly. All right. So if you could repeat after me, we're close, so we should put on a mask.
You're okay.
Sorry. Thank you for
We'll always
reminding me.
remember this call.
Okay. All right. Now okay. If you could repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
And that I will faithfully discharge all the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge all the duties
incumbent upon me as a member of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
incumbent upon me as a member of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. For those who don't know, Sarah is a multimodal council member, frequently on bike, on foot, and riding both the Dash Bus and Metro Rail, as well as VRE, I think. So we know you're going to fit right in.
2 of them today, even. Yeah.
We are so glad to have you. Okay, we also have the opportunity to recognize a commissioner who is moving on, who has been an incredible contributor to Nbtc. Elizabeth Bennett Parker regretfully was not able to join us tonight, but I would be so remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to recognize how much she's done for us. She, of course, is moving on to a new role serving in the Virginia House of Delegates, representing the 45th district. And we are very much looking forward to working with her in that capacity to advance transit for the citizens of Northern Virginia. We envy our House of Delegates members who will get to work with her even more closely. And we do have a resolution of commendation for her, recognizing that she's been with us since January 2019 and serving as chair of the VRE Operations Board in 2021, which of course has been an immensely challenging year to chair a board of operating service. Under her leadership, VRE continued to provide safe and frequent service. And one of her best legacies for us is that she has consistently been an advocate for and champion for legislative changes to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, which has brought in the ability of elected officials to participate electronically in public meetings. That has had an impact on Nvtc meetings, including a number of people who've joined us tonight. And I think if it weren't for her advocacy, we would have had meetings with fewer commissioners present, which I think would have been less impactful and productive meetings. So quite a legacy she's already left us, and we know she's gone on to achieve even more wonderful things. We would like to formally approve that resolution of commendation, and for that, I need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you very much. I'll give it to her colleague from Alexandria, a second by Senator Evan. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Got an aye from Delegate Reed. Ms. Garvey.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Palchik.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Letourneau.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? That carries unanimously. We will miss Delegate-elect Parker enormously and wish her well as she serves in the General Assembly. All right, a much more pedestrian action, which is that we need to approve our minutes from when we last met on December 2nd. I trust everyone's had the opportunity to review them, so I will go straight to a motion for approval of those minutes. Thank you, Senator Evan. A second.
Second.
Thank you. It is seconded by Vice Chair Aguirre. Any further discussion or amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. I got Ms. Garvey. I think I heard Delegate Reed with an aye. Is that right, Delegate Reed?
That's correct.
Fantastic. Ms. Palchik?
I'll abstain. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Okay, and Mr. Letourneau?
Aye. I just need to shout louder, I guess.
Thank you. Oh, and then we have an abstention in the room, Mr. Stork. Are there any other abstentions in the room? Okay. Seeing none, I believe that carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we also take the action to approve the meeting summary of our joint legislative briefing, which occurred on December 6th. Thank you. I think we'll have a longer recap from our executive director later, but thank you to all who attended. We had a really terrific turnout and a great conversation. And we would like to make the summary of that meeting a matter of public record. So to do so, do I have a motion to approve that summary?
So moved.
All right, great, thank you. That's been moved by Mr. McKay, seconded by Speaker Filler-Corn. Any further discussion? All right, and here is a question I should have cleared with our secretary in advance. May members vote on that meeting summary if they weren't present, or do we encourage their abstention?
They are absolutely welcome to vote on it, even if they were not there. If they choose to abstain, that's fine.
Okay, got it. So hopefully everyone caught that. You are welcome to vote as long as the summary looks good to your eye, even if you were not present. You are also welcome to abstain. All right, having clarified as much, that has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I think I caught Delegate Reed and Ms. Garvey on the phone. Ms. Palchik?
Abstain, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Mr. Letourneau?
Aye.
Thanks. Any opposed in the room? Okay. Then that carries, oh, please, an abstention as well in the room, Senator Evan. Any others? All right, that carries as well. Thank you all so much. All right, having dispatched with all of that business, we get to one of our best events of the night, which is the opportunity to approve a recommended slate of officers for 2022. The executive committee is recommending the following slate of officers. We are recommending that our chair be Kenneth Aguirre from the city of Alexandria, our vice chair be Dahlia Palchik from Fairfax County, and Matt DeFerenti from Arlington County serving as our secretary treasurer. I will open the floor if there are any other nominations. Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion for approval of the recommended slate of candidates?
Second.
Thank you, Senator Evan. A second from Chairman McKay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a vote in the room, and then I can do a roll call for the folks on the phone. That might make it easier. All those in the room in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, now to the phones. Delegate Reed, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Palchik?
Sorry, hi, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garvey?
Aye.
And Mr. Letourneau?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Congratulations to our new officers. I am going to ask did those in the room join me up front and for the oath of office. And I think maybe Ms. Palchik, what we might do is we'll swear in these two gentlemen, and then we'll do a virtual swearing in for you.
Good.
Great. If you could repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will faithfully discharge all the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge all the duties
incumbent upon me as an officer of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
incumbent upon me as an officer of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the
Congratulations to both. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Palchik, we'll do the same. If you could repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully discharge all the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge all the duties
incumbent upon me as an officer of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
incumbent upon me as an officer of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Over as Chair Emeritus, I would just like to take the opportunity to recognize that we are making some history tonight. In the more than half century of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, there has never been a Latino chairman, which I think is incredibly exciting, not only because of the leadership of Mr. Aguirre in particular, but because we know that our ridership of transit for which we advocate is incredibly diverse. In fact, according to the Bus Transformation Project, it is majority non-white ridership of bus in our region. And I think it's incredibly important that our riders and our residents and our constituents see themselves reflected in leadership. And so it is with no small amount of pride in Mr. Aguirre and Ms. Palchik as our first Latina vice chair that I hand this gavel to you, sir. Thank you so much. We are in excellent hands.
So first thing as chair, I get to commend our outgoing chair, Ms. Katie Crystal. And on behalf of the entire commission, I want to acknowledge her exceptional service as chair, not just for 2020, but also for 2021. I know it was pretty crazy. You had like 2 or 3 meetings in person, and then all of a sudden it was like, what are we doing? Pandemic hits, but you hit it in stride. We went to virtual, and then eventually back to hybrid and everything. So we've prepared a resolution for your service. I'm going to proceed to read the entire thing. We did promise everybody to get you out of here by like 8:45 or so, before any of the snow starts hitting. But to highlight a few of the things that Kitty's done, Ms. Crystal has been an advocate of balanced transit investments in the region, transportation infrastructure enhancements, emergency preparedness, economic development, improved transit service, pedestrian-friendly initiatives, reduced fare initiatives, and transportation equity, all the things that I enjoy doing. So it's going to be a very smooth transition, so we continue a lot of those things. And I think, on top of having to deal with the pandemic and everything, we also had a huge transition with the number of commissioners. We had 10 new commissioners, which is pretty much half of this entire body that we had to change over. And I feel that things ran very seamlessly. And, I'm just excited to be here with you. And I hope I can bring half of the levity and laughter that you bring to the commission. And I just come up here and have a quick picture. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I only have 20 to 30 minutes to work.
There we go.
No, but this is so lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is very meaningful, and you all are in excellent hands with our chairman Aguirre. And I just want to thank you all so much, and particularly the staff, capably led by Kate Mattias. In some ways, I think this has maybe been the most unconventional or stressful of times to chair a body, but in some ways, it's also been the best and a high watermark for this commission, not only because of the quality of staff and of our commissioners, but because of the incredible friends that we've had in Richmond the past couple of years. Certainly in my going on 7 years of serving on the commission, we have never had such a strong and participatory delegation from the General Assembly. We've been so fortunate to have you all not only contributing so meaningfully at our meetings, but also championing the cause in the General Assembly. And between your partnership and that of the Department of Rail and Public Transportation in particular, in this administration in general, this has been an incredible opportunity to achieve really transformative things. I know we use that word too often, transportation, but really transformative things when it comes to rail and others. I will not bore anybody by listing the many accomplishments, but I'll just conclude by noting, in 2018, following the passage of the Metro funding legislation that pretty dramatically changed how the region would be represented on Metro, we had a lot of really challenging conversations about how we wanted to work that through as a region. And I think one of the points of consensus was that we were going to have to be even more collaborative than we'd ever been. And it's just been such a joy to see leaders around the region come forward and really rise to that occasion and be so collaborative. It's been such a pleasure. So thank you so much. And thank you, Kenneth.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to thank, thank you for your leadership. I know this last 2 years have been hard on everyone, but nothing is harder than trying to chair a meeting through all the changes, to the participation, to the virtual, to working with the staff. And I don't think we give enough credit for that. I mean, I read the resolution and all the transit accomplishments, but I just want to emphasize how difficult that is and how you've navigated that so well, seamlessly for all of us. And I'm so excited by it that I feel like we should move and approve the resolution that you just took away. And I don't think we voted on it. So I want to make sure we vote on it. And so I am happy to move the resolution of commendation and attachment 4B.
Second.
So it is a motion by Mr. McKay, and I saw Mr. Snyder's hand first. I'll give it to Mr. Snyder for the second. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, just one quick comment. Everything that Katie said about everybody else is absolutely true, but not enough has been said about her. So I will just take a minute. Her civility, humor, and effectiveness really set a new standard for us all. So thank you so much.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Letourneau.
Yeah, it seems like a very, very long time ago, but until a few minutes ago, I was actually the immediate past chair to handle the devil over to Ms. Crystal a long time ago. And I just want to echo what Mr. Snyder just said and say what an outstanding asset Katie has been to our organization during this time, chairing for 2 years in really difficult circumstances, and just wanted to thank her for her friendship and for her leadership, and then also congratulate Kanik on taking over. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. I'd just like to echo one more time how much we appreciate Ms. Crystal and everything she's done. Again, 2 years, continuity is so important for bodies like ours, and so it's been really great that we've been able to do this. So we're going to go ahead. All those in favor, say aye.
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 We're missing one person from the virtual. I think I heard Mr. Letourneau and Mr. Reed. Was that Ms. Garvey or Ms. Palchak?
Probably both of us, but aye.
I'm going to say it's unanimous. All right, so the motion passes unanimously. And did you want to say anything else? So we're going to go ahead and jump to item 4C, which is to approve the resolution 2466, selection of Nbtc representatives to various boards. So every January, we appoint and or reconfirm our appointments to the Ramada Board of Directors, the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board, and the Virginia Transit Association Board of Directors. So resolution 2466 has been updated and has been provided as a blue sheeted item that reflects the City of Alexandria's appointments to Nbtc. Looking around real fast, looks like everybody's got that. As we just wanted to note, Bagley and Mr. McPike. So also with resolution 2466 includes the WMATA board appointments. Mr. Smedberg will continue as a Commonwealth Principal Appointee to the WMATA board. Myself will be his alternate. Mr. Letourneau will be the Nvtc Principal Appointee, and Mr. Walter Alcorn will be his alternate. Their terms are listed in the resolution. And the resolution has been updated to add my colleague, Sarah Bagley, who will serve as principal member on the operations board for VRE. Also of note, Ms. Libby Garvey is now a principal member of the VRE operations board from Arlington County, and Ms. Katie Crystal will serve as her alternate. For the Virginia Transit Association Board of Directors, I will be appointed as an alternate, replacing Ms. Bennett Parker. And with that, I look for a motion to approve resolution 2466.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Crystal, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. McKay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Palchak, Ms. Garvey,
Aye.
Mr. Reed,
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau.
Aye.
All right, looks like it is unanimous. And the motion passes. Moving on to item 4D, approving the recommended Nvtc committee membership. As outlined in our Nvtc bylaws, we have 4 committees: Executive Committee, WMATA Committee, Legislative and Policy Committee, and Program Advisory Committee. You have an updated committee roster in front of you, hopefully. And the proposed committee chairs are as follows. I, as the Nbtc chair, will serve as chair of the Executive Committee. Mr. Walter Alcorn will serve as the chair of the Nbtc WMATA Committee. Mr. David Snyder will continue to serve as the chair of the Program Advisory Committee. And Mr. David Meyer will continue to serve as the chair of the Legislative and Policy Committee. The rest of the committee memberships do not change except for the following. Mr. Walter Alcorn joins the Executive Committee as chair of the Ramada Committee. Mr. DeFerranti joins the Executive Committee as an officer, Secretary Treasurer. Ms. Crystal will continue on Executive Committee as immediate past chair, and Ms. Sarah Bagley will join the Program Advisory Committee. Just a reminder, all commissioners can attend any committee meeting as there are all public meetings. Can I have a motion to approve the recommended MVTC committee membership?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Smedberg, or seconded by Mr. Corn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll check. For Ms. Reed.
Aye.
Perfect. All right. Looks like it is unanimous as well. The motion passes. Item 4E, Resolution 2467, designation of Nbtc signatories and pension trustees. So this is purely administrative. This is done every January as well to designate the newly appointed Secretary Treasurer as a Nbtc signatory and pension trustee. So Mr. DeFerranti, to the challenge.
I believe so, I hope so.
All right. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2467?
So moved.
I believe that's Ms. Garvey.
Nope, Ms.
No,
Palchik.
Ms. Palchik, my apologies. With the motion and a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. McKay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I think that was all four people virtually. So the motion passes unanimously. Okay, pushing along here. Item number 5, we have our consent agenda. 2 items, both of which are administrative in nature. So 5A is the approval of Resolution 2468 to approve the amended and restated memorandum of agreement regarding the annual transit investment in the 395 hot lanes. And 5B to authorize the executive director to amend the Envision Route 7 Phase 4 contract with Kittleson and Associates. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's Mr. Snyder with the motion and second from Mr. Krizik. Any further discussion on that one? Nope. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, we have 4 ayes virtually, so I'll take that one. And the motion passes unanimously. All right, I get to stop talking for a little bit because I think what a lot of us run into, we're always putting our heads down and doing so much work because we're trying to get things done for our communities. And we sometimes forget to take a look back and appreciate some of the accomplishments that we've made. And so with item 6, we're going to be handing it over to Ms. Matthijs to give us our 2021 year in review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we're really very fortunate because we've got the addition of Monique Blyther on our communications team. We now have been able to broaden our visual communications. So instead of a printed annual report, we are going to have a video presented to you of highlights. It's just a couple minutes long. And she has worked incredible over the last month putting this together with support from many of our folks. There will be a digital report coming out in a couple of weeks, and both she and Matt Freeman have worked really hard on it. So I'm going to turn over and look forward to the IT gods making this possible. So.
Hello, I'm Kate Matthijs, Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. I'd like to give you a brief overview of the important work we've done for the region during 2021. While the COVID-19 pandemic continued to dampen public transit in Northern Virginia, we saw signs of hope as people across the region lined up to get vaccinated and some sense of normalcy returned to life. In July, we resumed in-person commission meetings. allowing us to gather face-to-face for the first time since before the pandemic. And thanks to technology, we were able to provide new flexibilities for commissioners to participate virtually when needed. I should point out that despite the changes the pandemic brought us to the way we work, it never stopped us from moving forward. That includes the money we manage to keep our transit agencies that serve our region moving. As the grantor agent, Nbtc managed $277 million in funding received during fiscal year 21. That included nearly $174 million in assistance from the Commonwealth of Virginia for Metro, almost $31 million in federal grants on behalf of 2 local jurisdictions, and more than $15 million for Nvtc's Commuter Choice program. Let's turn now to key programs managed by Nvtc. We enjoy a special relationship with Metro that includes the appointment of 2 members of the Board of Directors. In 2021, Paul Smedberg, representing the Commonwealth, was selected to a 3rd term as chair of the board, and Matt Letourneau of Loudoun County became the chair of the board's Finance and Capital Committee. Through our board appointments, we continue to advocate for Virginia's interests. That includes the use of 3 rounds of pandemic relief federal funding to keep vital Metrobus and Metro Rail services running. We also press for fair policy changes to benefit riders in Northern Virginia. Nvtc also continued its work to ensure regional cooperation during continued Metro Rail station reconstruction. 2021 saw the shutdown of the Arlington Cemetery Station. The station's reopening in May signaled the end of work to rebuild 12 outdoor stations. Projects that closed stations in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and necessitated the implementation of shuttle buses to keep transit services running. It was an exciting year for our transit technology program. We published the 2021 Northern Virginia Regional Fare Collection Strategic Plan, a white paper on zero fare and reduced fare options for Northern Virginia transit providers, and hosted a symposium on zero-emission buses. The program also assisted with the rollout of the Smart Trip mobile app for Android devices and Google Pay, just a few months after the launch of the app for iOS users and Apple Pay. Nvtc's Transit Resource Center continued to analyze traffic and transit data to understand the impact of the pandemic on the travel patterns for people driving and riding. The Commission also approved a contract to continue the study for a bus rapid transit system connecting Tysons, Falls Church, Arlington, and Alexandria. The latest study phase for the envisioned Route 7 BRT will look at mobility benefits, potential traffic impacts and operating issues, and include public engagement and an education process. As you may know, Nvtc co-owns the Virginia Railway Express with the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission. Both commissions approved several key measures in 2021 to benefit VRE. That includes the purchase of 21 new rail cars, action to move forward on a new station at Potomac Shores in Prince William County, and expansion and modernization of several other stations, including key stations at Alexandria, Crystal City, and L'Enfant Plaza. Beyond the formal programs within Nvtc, we continually strive to be a hub for conversations and connections regarding transit in Northern Virginia. In February, we hosted Senator Mark Warner, who convened a roundtable of transportation leaders to talk about the pandemic's impact and to gather insights for the infrastructure bill that passed later in the year. In December, we convened our annual legislative briefing in partnership with PRTC to again hear from transit leaders, including representatives from the U.S. Department of Transportation and Virginia's Deputy Secretary of Transportation. Throughout the year, our staff and myself presented at and attended national and regional conferences and seminars to share lessons learned by the work that we do and to learn from others. I want to thank you for watching. You can learn more about the work of Nbtc in 2021 and every year by going to our website, novatransit.org.
I will
ask how nervous Kate was.
You are used to that.
Yeah, but that was a great video. Thank you so much to Monique as well for helping to put that together. Any questions or comments for this past year that anyone wants to talk about?
Have you been hearing that in your sleep?
Thankfully, I haven't had to listen to it too much. She has. She probably hears it in her sleep.
Right, well, this will transition us well to the next agenda item when we look ahead to 2022 with our budget and work plan. So item 7 is our Nvtc FY23 general and administrative budget and 22 to 23 work plan. Tonight, we'll be asked to approve the FY23 general administrative budget and work plan. But before that, we will open up the meeting for public comment on our work plan, which is not looking like we might have any. But this special annual public comment opportunity focused on the scope of Mbtc's work is required by our bylaws. As a reminder, in 2020, Mbtc added a monthly opportunity for the public to provide comments. We have been receiving and reporting on those comments at each of our public meetings. So if we have any.
Mr. Chair, we don't have any comments. So nobody signed up to come up.
Well, we'll just encourage the public as always. If anytime you want to comment, we're always eager to hear from you. All right. So Ms. Matthijs, do we have any comments ahead of the meeting?
So we did not, other than the one that was a general one that was shared with the commission.
All right. So on behalf of the entire commission, we hope that there's public comment maybe next time. We'll see. At the December meeting, our commission was briefed on the proposed budget and Nvtc work plan. The executive committee approved both documents to be provided to the full commission for action. Since the last commission meeting, staff added a new proposed option to add an executive assistant position that was discussed by the executive committee a little earlier tonight. And the executive committee endorses the revised budget for commission consideration / approval. So Ms. Matthijs, would you like to speak a little bit on the proposed and revised budget and work plan?
Please, yes, and indeed, you just moved to the next slide. Thanks so much. So as you recall, last month we presented a proposed 23 G&A budget that seeks really to maintain near zero growth while building our policy research portfolio and providing training opportunities to retain all of our highly skilled staff. And it included additional funding for executive training for staff, as well as created an Nbtc research line to allow for quick response policy research as directed by the commission. And so since our last meeting in December, we've received some information about revenue estimates that are used to be able to fund the Nbtc. If you recall, a great majority of the funding that supports our general administrative budget comes from a takedown the jurisdictions provide us off of state aid, so the DRPT funding. And so really there's really good news in that front. The projected budget for public transportation funding in 2023 is larger than we had estimated. With the additional $10 million as a carryover from the previous year, with a big thanks to Speaker Philip Horn for making that happen. We estimate between that and an increase in revenues in the budget that was announced is that at least a 9% increase in the DRPT funding. We've actually heard a sense that it may be considerably more than that. So we're very excited and anticipating hearing more from DRPT in the future. So the 9% is actually a conservative estimate of growth 2023 over 2022. And so we see these additional funds, again, conservatively as a $20 million increase, and they could be as much as $110 million increase for our localities, is really a great opportunity to address a growing need within Nbtc and our ability to really effectively reach out and engage with the community, engage with our stakeholders, and continue to move this mission forward. So what's proposed in the revised budget is an additional $109,800 in funding for the salary, benefits, and additional administrative costs for a new position. That position would provide support to our office, sort of administrative and other things to allow for me and others to be able to get out there and engage with the public. Again, this person would provide the necessary administrative support to allow me to be more responsive to external requests, increasing preparation and the ability to get to outside meetings, as well as handle other administrative tasks that are key to the mission of the organization. Scott Colquarth did review the budget option with our jurisdictional staff, and he did not receive any comments or concerns. So again, what I want just to give an overview of that, and I think we do have those slides up there, but all of this material was included in the materials that were sent out ahead of the holiday break. So I'm asking that the commission seek to approve the revised FY 2023 G&A budget. And obviously Scott and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
And again, just for the full body to know, we were discussing this in executive commission, and a couple of things that came up. Nvtc has been growing, right? So we have more folks, we have more needs as a commission to be able to handle more public engagement. We have our committees that are very, very active, so making sure that they're fully staffed, and also the capacity with a lot of the virtual meetings that we've had to do, and all of the technology needs that we're seeing. So we endorse this to go forward, but wanted to open it up to the rest of the commission if you have any questions for Mr. Mattias or Mr. Colquarth as well. Yes, Mr. Colquarth.
I would just say that I think this is needed, necessary, very timely. As you mentioned, we really need the Kate to be out there and meeting and providing outreach, and I think it's a great budget, and I fully support it.
Yeah, if you want to place a motion, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to move that we adopt the budget.
Second. Motion by Ms. Fillicorn, second by Mr. Smedberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, I heard 4 ayes virtually, so we're gonna go with that. So motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. And we look forward to bringing on a new person sometime soon next year, hopefully. Or this year, I mean.
This year.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm still transitioning from 21 to 22 here. All right, now we're gonna be moving to item number 8, which is gonna be WMATA. So we have Mr. Spedberg and Mr. Letourneau that are available for a report.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Letourneau is going to take the first part of the report, and I'll take the last half.
All right, Mr. Letourneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So believe it or not, the WMATA board actually has not met since Nvtc met. We met on the same day a month ago, and our first meeting of the year is next year. So there's not a lot of new information for you. One just piece of board item is that Secretary Greg Slater of Maryland has announced his resignation and therefore will no longer be on the WMATA board. Paul and I both enjoy working with Greg quite a bit, so we'll miss him. But that means actually that Paul has always been the senior member, but with less than 2 years of service time, that actually puts me in second place now on the WMATA board. So we've had just a tremendous amount of turnover, which presents some challenges, but we're all still getting to know each other and working together. We authorized public hearings and public comment on the general manager's proposed 23 operating and capital budget. It assumes a gradual ridership recovery, maintains the current budgeted service levels, and offers several permanent and temporary fare discount options for us to discuss. Those would include the $2 late night rail fare, discounting monthly passes to better reflect additional teleworking, discounting the 7-day unlimited pass for 6 months, and potentially providing an add value bonus. With ridership still below the pre-pandemic levels, and just to sort of pause on that, obviously, we've had another surge of the coronavirus. A lot of folks who were planning to go back in person to work in January are not doing so. Even my office, which had a 2-day-a-week policy, is back down to 0. So, ridership is low. It's lower than it was. We actually have been running a little bit above budget for this fiscal year until now, which is good news. So it gives us a little bit of a cushion. But ridership is between 25 and 30% of pre-pandemic levels at the moment, and that's probably going to continue through January with this surge of the coronavirus. The FY23 operating budget contains a $715 million gap, which is entirely offset with federal aid. And that, as I've mentioned many times before, that leaves $151 million in federal aid for 2024, creating an operating gap of about $519 million. The board will be having a number of budget work sessions. We're going to be having one in the Finance Committee next Thursday. WMATA will be taking public comment and will be approving this budget in March of 2022. And I will, with that, turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Chair, last month, the board approved an updated Metro Rail and Metro Bus fleet plan and rail service standards. The Metro Bus fleet plan calls for approximately the same number of buses as the current fleet, a phased transition to 100% zero emissions fleet, an expanded articulated bus fleet, and an increased spare ratio to respond to technology and capital program needs. The Metro Rail fleet plan includes a framework of investments necessary to achieve 100% 8-car train operations and a 7-minute headway system-wide by 2030. The Metro Rail service standards set minimum train frequencies, passenger load standards, and direct staff to strive to operate 100% 8-car trains. From operating from from the opening to 9:30 p.m. 7 days a week, the minimum frequencies are 6 minutes on the red line and 12 minutes on all other lines. After 9:30 to close, it is 10 minutes on the red line and 15 minutes on other lines. And lastly, also last month, the Metro Board adopted additional reforms to the WMATA IG's office as a condition of funding provided to WMATA through the infrastructure bill. And that's our update.
All right. Any questions or comments from our commissioners or WMATA board members?
A couple questions. Do you have anything to report on the 7,000 series cars?
Other than, the staff is working, very collaboratively with, the NTSB and all the entities that are involved, the Safety Commission. David, unfortunately, we really can't say too much because of the investigation right now and everything that's ongoing. But we can say that, we did have a little hiccup last week, as you all probably saw in the paper. But I think we'll, be able to overcome that soon and, hopefully, start reintroducing the 7,000 series cars back into, production. But there's no timeline. So, but they are working, is very hard to get to the root cause of this.
Okay, and then one other question regarding the FY 2024 budget gap of 500+ million.
Yeah.
Are there some proposals about how to close that gap, or what's the nature of that discussion in connection with the FY 2023 budget?
Yeah,
So,
go ahead, Matt. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the challenge with it is, the federal money really kind of did have the assumption that we would not be laying off any of our employees in order to utilize that funding. And really for Metro, as with many large organizations, the vast majority of the expenditure is labor related. And labor right now is a huge challenge. I'm sure you did see that operationally, Metro did have to cut back on some bus routes right now because of driver shortages related to the pandemic. And I think all of our organizations are probably experiencing that, as well as our school systems and otherwise. But, that's the challenge. So we did not feel that we can, sort of begin that reduction. And that's really the only realistic way to actually make a difference in closing that gap. I think once we get past this budget, we are going to be having more significant conversations about the future. If we can get some idea of where we're sort of going to land in terms of ridership. I think in past meetings, we've talked a little bit about what some of those projections are. But then you have a variant like this that crops up and it kind of calls everything into question. So we really kind of need to get past this budget cycle, approve this budget, and then have, I think, a good discussion as a board and as a region about what level of service our expectation is and what it would take to provide that. Ultimately, we're really going to need federal assistance. And I think that's a message that every one of us has to consistently bring forward in every venue that we get. This is not just a WMATA problem. This is a problem for every large transit agency in the United States. In fact, most of them will be running out of funding around the same time. If you start, we've been tracking other systems and looking at Boston and New York and Philadelphia and San Francisco, and pretty much everybody can get through this year and then is going to run out of funding. And so I do think as a country, we're going to be in this position of having to decide if we want all of our major urban transit systems to be in that position of having to dramatically reduce service and lay off employees in order to make budget. And that's hopefully there'll be some momentum toward that. We all know how Congress works and how, things don't seem to happen until there's a crisis. So as much as I want us to try to get out ahead of this and have those conversations, it doesn't often work that way. But I think we all really need to be, singing from the same sheet of music on that.
David, Matt and I have really been highlighting the fact that we will have this gap in fiscal year 24. So it's top of mind for folks as they start thinking about maybe some initiatives or priorities they may have with the system, until we, tackle some of these bigger issues. What is Metro going to look like in 5 to 10 years?
And I will say just on that, it is one of those things. We have a new administration coming in Virginia. I have had conversations with, a few folks that are working with that new transition just to make sure that this is the very first thing that they understand coming in on Metro, other than how important it is, but that we do have this issue coming up. And so, to the extent that the state government can be helpful, obviously working with Maryland and DC, that's something we need to explore too.
Thanks a lot. And just one other comment. Looks like our Ramada committee has a full plate of work to do. And we're meeting, I guess, in March in order to provide comments.
Actually, meeting in
January.
January 20th.
To
Yep.
provide comments on the budget. Right?
Tonight.
Okay. And one other comment, I know that in prior times when we were talking about doomsday scenarios, we were talking about closing large numbers of stations. And let me just say on the record again, that's a really bad idea. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Garvey.
Yeah, thank you. One follow-up comment, I guess, and then a question on a slightly different subject. On the hiccups with the 7,000 series, maybe when it all kind of the dust settles and things are clear, perhaps we get some kind of a little briefing about, what really what happened and why it was on again, off again, and hopefully on again soon. If that's, I understand you can't talk about it now, but when you can, I think that might be good for us to hear if that's okay. And then on, we've had these cutbacks on Monday, and I'm sure we're not the only jurisdiction, but, we've had two of our 3Y and 16Y, and they were just starting to do better. And now they're getting cut again. Can we I don't know how to get some sort of assurance that once the staffing gets up, you get your employees back and can do it, that WMATA will get those back up and running again. I mean, they're budgeted for, they're planned for as soon as possible. Can we have them back, please?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they're working through the labor force issues, Ms. Garvey, and, they're committed to bringing back as many routes as possible, as soon as they can. But it admittedly has been a challenge in certain divisions with vaccination rates and
and we're not, I think we all totally understand that. Just want to make sure that we don't get forgotten when people do come back.
No. These are not, and just, just so people are clear, the word cut, these are just sort of temporary suspensions.
Okay.
These are not actual
cuts.
Cuts,
right.
To service. These are just temporary extensions. Yeah.
I should have used that.
You used the word, Libby, which I was going to use, which is they are budgeted for and planned for. So they should be operating, and they would be operating if not for extraordinary personnel circumstances. And so they will be operating again as soon as that can be done.
Thank you. I appreciate the reassurance. Just kind of wanted to make sure it was really clear that we've noticed that we want them back as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
and we'll be getting an update next week during the board meeting. So
okay, great. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Garvey. Mr. Faust.
Thank you. Can you tell us what's the latest estimate of the passenger service date for the Silver Line? And, you know, how confident are we that we'll reach that date? Are there major risks between now and then that we could encounter additional delay?
I mean, I think the major, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the major issues have been pretty much worked out. I mean, there are things, you know, like you would have a normal punch list with any project. But I think, you know, we are working toward something. Matt, I think, the calendar we have, I think is pretty good.
Yeah, there's not a date targeted that Metro has put out. The progress so far in testing has been steady, and in hiring has been good. So those are two metrics that we're looking at. Obviously, as testing continues, things can come up which could cause delays. And then there is sort of a process to determine how we handle some of the issues that Metro will be inheriting when we take over the project. And so candidly, if you're talking about sort of risk to timeline, that discussion, which is less about sort of technical and physical issues and more about, you know, the negotiation that needs to take place between the entities involved, you know, could be one that may take some time. And, you know, right now it's not something that Paul and I can talk about and we're involved in, but, you know, as we look into the, you know, next few months, that will be something that's being worked on. And we just need to make sure, you know, we've said it before, Metro at some point will be taking control of this. And so when we do, you know, we have to make sure that everything is in the shape it needs to be in. And when we have issues that we know took place during the project, that we're being compensated for, you know, potential disruption to service or potential increased maintenance or labor costs associated with those things. And that is kind of the negotiation that is taking place on those items. So it's a little bit of an unknown for all of us.
And John, the board has made it very clear that we are not going to have a final acceptance of this project, you know, that's going to place an undue financial burden or anything on, you know, the funding jurisdictions. So, you know, it's, and MWA and others are, you know, well aware of that you know, we're gonna.
And I appreciate that. It's just, you know, it seems almost unbelievable to me that we don't have a date. You know, I was construction lawyer for 30 years, probably worked on 100 construction projects. I never worked on one that didn't have a projected completion date. And I just don't understand what's so vague and difficult about this project that we can't begin to start thinking about when it's going to be available to our constituents and the developments that we're approving and so forth. It escapes me.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is definitely frustrating. And just for the new commissioners, I mean, this is not a WMATA project. This is being managed by the airport authority. So, you know, just so people are clear about that. But John, obviously we share a lot of the same frustrations.
Yeah, and I think part of the challenge is WMATA's contractors may well have a date, but that's not going to be a WMATA operational date. So you know, the fact that there are kind of different dates and timelines floating around makes it more difficult to have a date for what people really care about, which is when is service actually going to start. You know, I mean, it's great. We hit substantial completion on the rail yard and on phase 2. That's good. But, you know, they've given us some timelines which we can share on how long these different testing phases should take, and then how long it will take Metro once we get started, you know, once we take control. That's like a 60 to 90 day period to actually what we call operational readiness. But, you know, I think, frankly, some of this is part of that negotiation that's going to take place, because just speaking very generally and vaguely, there are certain situations where the contractor feels that something's been fixed and is completed and requires no further mitigation. And there are situations where maybe Metro feels differently. So that's one of the challenges with pinpointing something.
Mr. DeFranco.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. And I'm not sure, the 7,000 series, sort of following up on Mr. Faust's question. Do we know whether the problems with the 7,000 series will impact the silver line timing, or is that not a question you can really answer? I know you can't talk too much about.
I mean, at this point, I don't think we can answer that.
Okay, and then just a reminder, maybe others have it fixed in their minds, but looking at the board packet and the link, the notice for the hearings didn't seem quickly to say when the hearings would actually be. And so do you have a sense, maybe others have it fixed in their minds, but we have the January 20th Ramada meeting. I'm just trying to kind of get timing.
So the Virginia, I just found out the other day, so the Virginia hearing will be February 7th here in Arlington. I forgot the location, but it's here in Arlington.
They may be using our boardroom.
I think they might be actually, yeah.
And then
Across the street, 2100 Clarendon Boulevard.
And then
Third
the finalization of the budget is May or June or April? I'm trying to remember.
End of March.
Okay, thanks.
And I'll be honest. I mean, the only we were going to do virtual hearings similar to what we did last year, but there was a requirement on the Virginia side to have in person, and we're not in a state of emergency, so a lot of what we're going through right now and trying to find places. So if we do it for one, we have to do it for all three. And the district, I'm not sure the other jurisdictions are thrilled that we have to go through this, but anyway, that's so.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's further. But yeah, February 7th.
Any other questions or comments? So as one of my last duties as outgoing chair of the Ramada committee, I would like to tell everyone, as Mr. Snyder was getting to, that there will be a meeting on January 20th. We'll be here at 6 p.m. Pending any state or local emergencies that may occur to discuss the comments on the Ramada proposed FY23 budget. And your chair for that meeting will be Mr. Alcorn. And as always, all commissioners are welcome to not only come listen in, but also participate. So if you have any input on the budget comments for Ramada, that would be the time. And also would like to note, since the commission will not be meeting in February, when the entire commission would typically take action to approve a letter to Ramada, and since comments on Ramada's FY23 budget are due in mid-February, I'd like to suggest that we have our Ramada committee chair work with staff to submit the committee's budget comments on time. I don't know if there's anyone that has any concern with that or is okay with that approach.
Do we need a motion? You're good.
No, I don't think we need a motion. Do we,
Mr. Chair?
Sorry.
Maybe just to be sure it reflects the consensus of the commission, just to submit a draft of it to the members of the commission a few days before it's due, so that if there are comments to be taken into consideration, that could be incorporated.
Sure. Yep. No, I think we could absolutely do that. Thank you, Senator Evans. Okay, we're gonna move on from Ramada now to our legislative update. The 2022 General Assembly session convenes on January 12th and adjourns on March 12th of 2022. We have our legislative liaison, Amy Perron-Seibert, to provide an update on proposed legislation that is of interest to Nbtc. And the Nvtc Legislative and Policy Committee will be meeting on February 17th at 5 p.m., which is right after crossover, to discuss the status of proposed legislation that may impact Nbtc. So Ms. Perron-Seibert.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My update will be, I think, generally a little bit brief at the moment, because there actually have not been any bills filed that affect Nbtc at the moment. So as everybody knows, session starts next week on the Wednesday, and bills are still in the drafting process and getting finalized, and will be filed, the first set of bills will be filed on Wednesday morning at 10. So we expect to see a pretty big influx. As everybody knows, we had a big problem with ransomware at the state, so that has pushed back a lot of the drafting, and just everything has been very condensed in this week. So everything's been a little bit frantic, but not a lot of bills have been filed. However, we've still been working on the bills that were priorities for Nbtc, such as the Electronic Public Meetings Bill with Elizabeth Bennett Parker, the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority bill, also with Elizabeth Bennett Parker. Senator Evan has kindly offered to put a bill in dealing with the bus procurement issue that Director Mitchell talked about at the last meeting, which we've been sort of helping to negotiate on that one. And so we've been doing a lot of things on those topics. And so those are bills that obviously we will see during this session. So I think the biggest thing that everybody is dying to know, and I don't have any information, which I apologize for, is who's the Secretary of Transportation going to be? And as well as other positions in that secretariat. And honestly, there has been really no information forthcoming. So they've held that pretty close to the vest. I don't know what else to say besides that. If anybody else has any info, that'd be great. But there's a bunch more secretaries that need to come out before next week. So transportation is one of them. So we're waiting with bated breath to find out who that will be, and therefore who will be the deputies. And then agency heads. I do know that there have been a lot of agency heads throughout the administration, the current administration, who have received letters that say their last day is the 14th, which is next Friday. I don't believe anybody in the transportation section has received such a letter yet. So hopefully that means that they might be able to stay on. A lot of administrations keep people on for, the 3 months of session and then reevaluate in the spring. So certainly potentially be happening in that world, as well as other different agencies. So we'll see. As soon as I find something out, we will share it. Although I'm sure you guys will see it just as fast as I do. So any other questions? I'm happy to talk to anybody about it.
Any questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your report. We'll definitely be in touch soon enough. Ms. Matthijs, anything from the federal level?
There isn't a lot of new news. There's, with the passage of the infrastructure bill, there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes at the U.S. Department of Transportation. Just as a reminder, moving out on any of the major funding packages is going to be contingent on getting actually a full year appropriations. And so right now, all of those federal agencies are still operating as a continuation of last year's funding levels. That's probably why you don't hear as much, but there are a lot of key staff. Seems to be a number of folks who were in the Obama administration who left, who are now all here to be heading back there. So I think they've got a lot of staffing up to help roll out a number of those programs. And again, we look at the formula funding, that's what we're talking about, helping WMATA, PRTC, and VRE, and all of them are looking at about a 30% increase in their, it's capital funding primarily that comes from the federal level. But then there are some major discretionary programs, but again, really nothing can happen with those until there's actually a full year appropriation. So we're watching a lot of those things in that space. But again, it's good to see there's some very, very smart people who are getting themselves into a appointed position over at USDOT to roll out a lot of these programs. The other thing that is out there that may have public transit funding in it, in addition, is the Buildback Better Act. I think many of you guys sort of know that space. There's a lot of uncertainty, but obviously we'll continue to watch it. In the draft that had moved forward was an actually additional $10 billion for public transportation, specifically about transit-oriented development, affordable housing linkages, which is pretty much Northern Virginia. So, and again, those would be discretionary grant programs. That, as we all know, has a lot less certainty. We do have this, obviously, the infrastructure bill that's already passed, and that will be put in place. So that's what I have for the federal space.
I recognize that I'm up against like maybe over a century's worth of federal sclerosis on this, and the answer is probably no. But I'm thinking about Ms. Filichino's comments earlier about the desperate need for federal relief on WMATA operating, and how we are in this kind of insane moment where there is so much capital funding available from the feds and none in operating. I mean, as you look out at this, is there a universe in which it makes sense for us to try to organize our lobbying efforts under a change, or for a big change to federal funding, such that we could start having greater flexibility to use capital funding for operating? Like, is there a universe in which it makes more sense to try to do that than to try to establish new or more relief streams?
Well, I definitely don't know the tea leaves on all of that. There has been, again, a historic sort of thing against federal funding for operating assistance. Now, to be perfectly honest, small transit regions, if you're a municipality of less than 250,000, these are these regional, we're this one big DC region. So I'm not talking about like Alexander, for example, but They actually can use some of their federal funding for operating assistance. Rural can use their federal funding for operating assistance. The politics on this are very, very difficult. If it was going to happen, we would have seen folks like Senator Warner moving that in. I had some opportunities to get some small meetings with him and other transportation, and that idea didn't even go past the words coming out of my mouth. So I'm not sure what the magic space is on that one.
Okay.
But we're better now than we probably have ever been in history, but I think it's still a pretty big lift.
Okay. So we'll keep advocating for new streams on operating then. Thanks, Kate.
One more question. Kate, are you sort of on the lookout for discretionary programs that either Nvtc might apply for?
Absolutely. That's what I was mentioning. So right now we're in this sort of holding place because those new announcements have not gone out, but we actually know and understand the laws at which they're around. So there are in particular, there are two programs that may be of interest. There's a lot of requirements associated with getting federal money, I think as many of you realize. One is a low and no emission bus and bus facility program. Historically, that's been about 150 million. It's something like 5.6 billion. Huge increase in that program. There also has historically been some planning, transit-oriented development planning grants. They usually get associated with things like bus rapid transit. So there may be in the future something we're looking at along the Route 7 corridor, for example. I wouldn't be surprised if Fairfax County's looked at it on the Richmond Highway. Those are probably the two key discretionary programs that would make sense to our region. And again, they haven't been fully funded yet. So I do know that a number of our localities are interested, especially in the low and no emission vehicle program, and are investigating if they want to play in that space or not.
Thank you.
Any other federal legislation questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Mattias. And we're going to go ahead and move to the next agenda item then, which is the Virginia Railway Express. And the VRE Operations Board Vice Chair-elect, Mr. James Walkinshaw, will present these action items after Mr. Dalton gives his VRE CEO report. Do we have Mr. Dalton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll take a moment here and congratulate you on your appointment and the appointment of Ms. Garvey and Ms. Bagley as principal members to the VRE Operations Board. Welcome aboard to you as well. And then just finally, in a similar vein, just wanted to thank Chair Crystal for her many years on the VRE Operations Board in her various leadership roles, and on behalf of the staff, we just really appreciate all that you've done for VRE in the past several years, and that picture that reminds me that we still need to make sure that we have a solid place for that new engineer that may hit us here in about 15 or 20 years. So with that, and good evening, other commission members and others. Just real quick, just wanted to, you do have the CEO report in your package, and just wanted to quickly recap December. Our on-time performance system-wide was 92%, and our average daily ridership dropped a little bit below 2,500 average daily riders, primarily due to the holiday season. I do want to note also that it goes without saying this has been a challenging week, not only for VRE, but all the transportation providers across the region, and specifically for VRE. We did operate a reduced service on Monday. We canceled service on Tuesday and Wednesday just to give our host railroads an opportunity to get their systems back at a reliable level. We returned to a reduced level of service today. And of course, I look out the window, I'm probably about 65 miles south of you, southwest of where you're at, and the snowflakes are starting to fly again. So we got our work cut out for us tonight. And but we do anticipate, barring any other unforeseen issues, to run a reduced service level tomorrow as well. And on that note too, I just from purely an operations standpoint, just a Herculean effort, if you will, across this entire region from a transportation standpoint. All of our partners, the various bus companies, Metro Rail, everybody this week has really worked hard to keep our transportation systems moving as Winter Storm Frida moved in on us. So with that, Mr. Chair, that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Any quick questions for Mr. Dalton? All right. Mr. Walkinshaw, would like to introduce the items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first VRE action item is the approval of resolution 2469 to accept the on VRE's FY 2021 annual comprehensive financial report. As recommended by the VRE Operations Board, the Commission is asked to approve resolution 2469, which would accept the FY 21 annual comprehensive financial report and the associated information from the auditors, and to authorize the CEO to distribute it. The FY 21 audit was conducted by the firm of PB Mayers LLP, which is the same firm that conducted audits for Nvtc and PRTC. The audit statements have been completed and the auditors have issued an unmodified opinion. The opinion letter states that VRE statements in all material respects fairly and accurately present the financial position of the organization, which is the best outcome for a financial audit. Credit to the entire VRE team and especially Mr. Schofield, who I think is with us once again to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments from commissioners? If not, Mr. Waukesha, would you like to make a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution 2469.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Waukesha, second from Ms. Crystal. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
I think that was everybody virtually.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard Ms. Garvey and Ms. Palchek, and I believe Mr. Reed and Mr. Letourneau. Were you and I as well?
I was, yes.
Perfect. All right. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, Mr. Waukesha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next VRE action item is to approve resolution 2470 to adopt and refer VRE's FY 2022 revised and FY 2023 recommended budgets to the jurisdictions. The commission is asked to approve resolution 2470 to adopt the amended FY 2022 VRE operating and capital budget and the recommended FY 2023 VRE operating and capital budget and refer them to the jurisdictions for their formal review and adoption. The resolution would also authorize the executive directors of Nbtc and PRTC to take the necessary actions to apply for federal and state grant funding. At the December 17th VRE Operations Board meeting, a floor amendment was approved that reduced the total FY 2023 jurisdictional subsidy amount to $13,544,122 from the originally proposed $18,300,780. Meeting materials have an updated FY 2023 subsidy chart showing the resulting subsidy breakdown by jurisdiction. A VRE staff had to update the recommended FY 2023 VRE operating capital changes. The updated budget book was provided to commissioners via email prior to this meeting. And despite the challenges presented by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, as we heard, the recommended budget is balanced with no funding gap and with all projected uses of funding in FY 2023 supported by reasonably expected sources of funding. The budget includes no changes to passenger fares as compared to FY 2022. And as I noted, a total jurisdictional subsidy contribution of $13.5 million. And once again, Mr. Schofield is here, and I think he might, on this one, have some thoughts he wants to share with us. All right.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Walkinshaw. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, commission members. With the exception to that change to the jurisdictional contribution that Mr. Walkinshaw had noted, this recommended FY23 budget that we're bringing to you this evening is not materially different than the preliminary budget that we came to you with earlier a couple months ago. And I will say actually that in sort of the large strokes, we are dealing with a lot of the same issues that Mr. Letourneau raised for Metro, just in terms of the challenges that we have with projecting ridership, using the pandemic relief money to backfill those losses in the near term, but looking at potentially some important discussions in the coming year. Our total recommended operating budget for FY23 is about $98 million, which includes $6 million for debt-related expenses. Our increased operating costs as compared to FY22 are primarily being driven by increases in diesel fuel, in our host railroad access fees, in the cost of our contracted train operations and maintenance, in our liability insurance, and in a return to our usual 2% contingency within the budget from the 1% level that we have this year. We are not proposing any changes to our level of staffing. As Mr. Walkinshaw noted, the operating budget does achieve balance through the use of those pandemic relief funds to backfill the lost passenger revenues and also to provide jurisdictional relief, as we are also doing this year. Projecting that ridership and revenue does continue to be a challenge, both in terms of trying to project the timing of when ridership may return and also what level of ridership we may get to at the end of the day. As of now, we are projecting average daily ridership of approximately 8,000 trips per day in FY23, hopefully with sort of an upward trend across those 12 months, and total passenger revenue of approximately $25 million, which is just over half of what we would have in a normal year. And it really is essentially a one-to-one trade-off there between that passenger revenue and the pandemic relief. As we get more riders and more revenue, we need to use less of the relief money. I'll make a quick comment here about the amended 22 budget, which is incorporated as a part of this. We have had a number of relatively small expense increases that we're able to accommodate within our existing contingency. And then, of course, we've had to adjust for two major changes in revenues: higher state operating assistance, which of course was much appreciated, and then, of course, the lower passenger revenue, which we're using our CARES and CRISA money to backfill. Then just a quick note about our capital improvement program. Our total project costs in our 6-year capital program are approximately $1.1 billion. We have committed funding for those projects of approximately $736 million. So we're about 2/3 of the budget is currently committed. And those are coming from a wide range of state, regional, local, and federal sources. The overall outlook for the capital program is actually generally positive, despite the ongoing pandemic. The actions that have been taken over the past few years, including the creation of the CROC, the commitment by the Commonwealth on the reimbursement of track access fees, and the creation of the VPRA as a part of that broader TRV program, all of those have created an environment that really is very supportive to VRE's long-term growth. We do have a couple of near-term challenges that we have to, in terms of projects that still have some funding that we have to get to, including the Broad Run expansion and the LaFont station and the fourth track. So one of our ongoing priorities is to work with our partners to secure that additional grant funding. In addition, for the first time, our capital program this year includes new projects to significantly expand our rolling stock, both locomotives and coaches. This expansion is currently programmed for a little bit out in sort of the near term, roughly the FY28 to 2032 period, with the first major expenditures expected in 2028, which is why they are now being included in this plan. That fleet expansion is currently unfunded, and so we will be looking again to talk to our partners about ways to get that expansion going. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Frontier.
And I don't know whether who this question is best to, Mr. Dalton, Mr. Schofield, Mr. Dalton. It's regarding that assumption that we get to 8,000 on average by the end of the year. If we don't end up getting there, does that mean that the shortfall would be covered by additional federal funding? Do I have that right?
Yes, it does. That is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Mr. Fox.
There's over $1 billion in your capital projects for the next 6 years. Are you looking at what happens if we don't see increased ridership or points during the next few years where you're going to reevaluate that level of investment?
I would say I'll give an answer, and then I'll let Rich jump in and add his comments. I think we have a lot of projects that are already well underway. The funding is already in place. A lot of those near-term projects, as far as expansions to our maintenance and storage facilities, expansions to our station platforms, all of those projects that are really important components of the TRV program. I don't believe those are really going to be up for any sort of re-evaluation, but those the additions, the expansions to the rolling stock that I was talking about a couple minutes ago, yes, that would certainly be something that if ridership were not to come back, that we would certainly take a look at. Rich, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I'll just state that, this process is continuous. So we're continuously looking at not only, the correct size of the organization and the correct size of the service moving forward. Obviously we want to make sure that, if there's growth, of course, that we can accommodate the growth. But to your point, yes, if there's at some point, if that growth is not materializing and or if the projected ridership is contracting, then absolutely we'll be adjusting that in the future.
Thank you.
Just to add, that's a conversation that the operations board is really deeply engaged in right now, and I think one of the things that not to speak for the board, but I think it's consistent to recognize that VRE is going to look different in the future, but that probably means serving a wider swath of drivers than we have. We're not going to continue to thrive if we're serving only commuters who arrive at their office downtown at 9 o'clock and leave at 5. So some investments are going to be part of achieving that transition, but to reiterate what Mark and Rich said, we look at it every year. The capital budget is approved every year.
I really couldn't agree more with Mr. Walkinshaw's point, and actually a point I think you made last month in this body about we cannot, frankly, as a region, we cannot accept a future in which ridership doesn't come back to VRE. And we know that VRE takes effectively a lane of traffic off 66 and 395 every day. And our road network cannot support people not opting for transit again. But the other point I was going to make too is that some of those capital projects, and I speak somewhat parochially here because one of them is in Arlington, support not just potential VRE expansion, but other passenger rail expansion like Amtrak, for example. So a number of those projects will make sense to go forward with VRE's future and for other investments in passenger rail too.
Yes, Mr. Stork.
Maybe the last point, can I agree with things that said as well. I think the last point we talked a lot about slight reduction in the subsidy over what the previous history had been. And we debated that impact, and we recognized that we will need to be continuing to stay focused on when and how the ridership comes back, because if it doesn't come back, we recognize that we have the same issues that frankly any transportation system has, is we're going to have to make adjustments in what we do and how we do it. But we clearly see, Richard, they can talk about this specifically, but we're talking about a year and a half, I think, of time, even though we think this coming year will be probably the crucial year for us to start anticipating what might be, and then start making adjustments, because we want to give ourselves plenty of room to ramp up or down depending upon what that longer term impact likely to be.
Any other questions or comments? Not, Mr. Walkinshaw?
Yeah, move approval of resolution 2470.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Walkinshaw and a second from Mr. DeFerranti. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Mr. Okay, all right, that's four ayes from the virtual world. We'll take it. So passes unanimously. Thank you. And Mr. Walkinshaw, I believe one more item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the final VRE item 10D is just an informational item that is December 17th. Meeting the operations board approved nominees for the 2022 VRE officers. As chair, Supervisor Margaret Franklin from Prince William County, representing PRTC. As vice chair, myself, James Walkinshaw, representing Nbtc. As treasurer, Preston Banks, Manassas Park, representing PRTC, and the secretary position is to be determined. We're still working on that. And just one note, the information that was distributed in the meeting materials had Mr. Banks listed as secretary, with Banks appointed as treasurer. The installation of VRE's 2022 officers will occur at the January 21 board meeting. And as a reminder, according to VRE's bylaws, each of the two commissions in the PRTC provide 2 officers from among its board members. The office of chair is rotated each year between the 2 commissions, with the vice chair representing the other commission. I'll just echo what was said earlier and thank Spinnet Parker for her incredible leadership as chair of the VRE board over the last year, and of course Ms. Crystal, who we're very sad will be leaving us temporarily, perhaps from the VRE operations board for great service.
Any other further VRE questions from the commission? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move to agenda item number 11, which is our report from the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. Director Mitchell, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I will just refer you all to the report that we have which recounted some of the December actions at the Commonwealth Transportation Board meeting. But what I hope is some good news is that this month, actually at our meeting next week with the CTB, we'll be bringing some funding allocations to the board for increased FY22 funding. And this is an increase in actual collections that we've seen, which was reflected in the governor's budget that came out last month. We're going to be programming about an additional $185 million in transit funding statewide. What that translates to for Nbtc in operating assistance is about $17.8 million for operating assistance to the various Nbtc jurisdictions, about $7.8 million to VRE for operating assistance, and $88 million to Nvtc for Ramada operating assistance. And again, this is for FY22. That's in addition to the FY23 funding that Kate talked about earlier. In addition to that, we have $10 million that we'll be adding to our TRIP program. That's our Transit Ridership Incentive Program that we can use for zero fare programs for FY. That'll be rolling over into FY23, actually. And also $4.4 million, which goes to our, what we call our special programs budget as well. So good news for us. We will plan to bring that to the CTB
next week for approval. In addition to that, as Kate mentioned before, you took action on the I-395, 95-395 MOA with the state to make an adjustment to the operating formula. We'll be bringing that to the CTB next week as well. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Mitchell, and I think that's great news, and I don't think anybody here would be opposed to additional allocations. So, all right, any questions for Director Mitchell? Mr. Snyder?
It's really not a question, but a comment. I want to say from Mitchell has been the most extraordinary head of BRPT that I have ever seen. To be part of Nbtc. So you've done an extraordinary service for the public, statewide and for us. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have our fingers crossed you're going to stay as long as possible.
Maybe I'll see you next month.
You didn't get the letter. All right. Any other questions or comments? I think we do. All right. So now turning to Ms. Mattice for our Executive Director report.
And I'm very mindful of your target goal. I shall hope you meet it. So indeed, early December was busy, and I'm very appreciative of all of the commissioners that came out to our joint legislative event. I think we might have had a nice little window of time where we could have a large gathering. It really worked out really, really well. Almost 100 people were there. We had a great conversation with Undersecretary for Policy Carlos Monier, as well as with Deputy Secretary Nick Donahue. I think it was very well received event, and I think we're really happy we're able to pull it off. And so a little bit later, just touching on a couple other things that we did. We also participated in what is our legislatively mandated joint public meeting that we have to hold with DRPT and VDOT and VRE and NBTA. Which is basically talk about projects. We did it virtually this year. And so we had several members of the public, including Councilman Snyder, providing some public comment at that event. And then finally, it's fun to celebrate these things, but we actually were able to have an in-person Nvtc staff holiday party up in our conference room. Everybody socially distanced. We did a cookie swap. We did a white elephant exchange. It was really wonderful. I thought we had almost all of our staff and our chair dropped by to say hello. Really great morale. Just an aside, we were supposed to do an all-day retreat in person on Monday. We are moving to all virtual because that's important and that's what we need to do. So basically take advantage of these events when you can. You've heard a lot about upcoming meetings, so I'm not going to repeat them, except we do have a lot of committee meetings coming up. I think that's on the next slide. So we do look forward to our Ramada folks coming on the 20th, Legislative Committee on the 14th of February, and then soon thereafter, the Permanent Advisory Committee on the 23rd. We do have a lot of stuff going on this spring, and so we want to keep that moving forward with the committee meetings. I do think it's important. I want to remind everybody where we are with our electronic participation policy. That is something that is a calendar year thing. We've had lots of folks asking about it. Every single commissioner has the ability to participate remotely. In fact, you can participate in this meeting or any one of the committee meetings up to 3 times a year. Actually, take that back. It's 3 times a year for the commission meetings, 2 times a year for each of the committees that you're on. If you have a medical reason for either yourself or caring for a family member, you have unlimited abilities to meet electronically. So I just want to put that out there. The most important thing is you need to contact the chair as well as our board secretary, Rhonda, to let them know that's what your intent is. We just need to do that for documentation purposes. And so other than that, we always have our financial report available in your meeting material, and that is it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Mattice. Any questions or comments on the Executive Director report or for Ms. Mattice? All right, well, I'd just like to echo some of what Ms. Crystal said earlier in her comments, and that I feel that we have very great leadership at Nvtc, a very excellent staff. I think we've had a great 2021, and I'm looking forward to a great 2022. And with that, unless there's any objections, I would like to adjourn us for tonight.
Thank you, everybody. Stay well. Thanks a lot.
Good night, y'all, on the virtual side.
Bye, everyone.
Good night. Yeah. Take care.
I have 4 minutes worth of questions.
Yes, I know.